listening to the #1 real estate podcast, where we talk with real estate agents and professionals all across the nation about their wins, losses, lessons, and stories to help you win in your local market today. My name is Cody from Sheridan Street. I am joined with Vikram Deol, my co-founder of the Real Estate Growth Academy and co-host of this podcast. My friend, Vikram, you're in focus. You're here. You got some water. You're good. We've been doing podcasts all day. How are you doing? How you feeling? You're hydrated? All good? You're happy? Life's good?
Bro, I was sick all week, and so to have to talk, and my job is all about talking. So today, I've done 5 hours of talking, so I definitely need a little water. But I'm super excited.
Super hard for you. It's not super hard. You like talking.
And it's not. I didn't say it was hard to talk. I just said it's hard to. It's a challenge when I'm sore throat.
Okay,
right.
sure.
So that's all. Little tickle down there. So every few minutes I might start coughing up a storm.
Okay.
But I'm super excited. I got my buddy Hugh Zaretsky, who is he actually coaches people on how to build wealth. And I know that's something that you've been really interested in, Cody, lately. And it's something that I've been really interested in my whole life. And he does it through Airbnbs, and he helps I guess it wouldn't be Airbnbs. It would be through real estate. Correct, Hugh? I don't want to discount what you do. But he travels all over the country,
whatever, both,
whatever it is. Fuck it. We're Friday. We're doing it all. He travels all over the place. He creates Airbnbs. He helps people buy rental properties. I've actually met clients of his. We met through a program where we're learning how to have more influence and more rapport with other people. And Hugh was so excited to see me that he broke a freaking chandelier. We're not going to talk about that story, but Hugh, the microphone's yours. I'm really interested in, probably the biggest thing that I'm interested in right now is, what is your take after you give your intro? But what is your take really on buying investment properties going into what could be potentially a down couple of years? So Hugh, the floor is yours, baby.
Awesome. So my background, I never really wanted to be a real estate investor or agent or anything like that. I was an IT guy. Both my parents were teachers, told me to study hard and get a good education. And most people believe that lie. And so I did. I watched them struggle financially, so I decided to go in the corporate world. I was an IT geek for many years. I worked my way up to director of technology for a company called Getty Images, which a lot of people know in the marketing industry. The stock photos, the sports photos, the paparazzi photos. My job was to get a photo in from anywhere in the world and out to every major newspaper in under 5 minutes. And I was sitting in my office one day. I was sitting in my office one day, and high on life, I had the condo in the building with the pool on the roof in New York.
Were you microdosing mushrooms, or is that just...
No, I was not high that high. I was just high on life, right at the corner office at the under age of 30, and I had stock options in a company that was eventually sold for $1 billion. And on that Tuesday, 2 planes flew directly past my window. Not a cloud in the sky, and they flew directly into the Twin Towers. And that's the day that made me sort of step back and reevaluate my life and decide that I really wasn't happy doing what I did. I won't tell you all the crazy stuff that I did that day. It is in the book, The Launch Button. There's a whole section just on what went down that day. But that's a day that changed my life and made me realize that I was just like most people, floating on a log on a river getting pushed around. So I started investing in real estate, took a training program. They asked me to start training investors all around the country. So I started flying around the country and fired my boss in 2005. Made my first investment in 2004, fired my boss in 2005. And that's what I do now. I teach and train over 10,000 investors across the United States, Canada, and other places as well. And we get to have some fun doing that, talking here with you guys and being able to go out there and have some fun. I'm actually staying in one of my students' Airbnbs right now in Denver. We'd scheduled this, and there you go. And I needed to honor Vikram because we scheduled this podcast, and all of a sudden, they were like, I need you to speak in Denver this weekend. I was like, all right, but so I literally got off the plane. They're like coming to the office to say hi to everybody. I was like, can't do it. I got to be on this podcast in 20 minutes. So drove over here. Make it happen.
The reason why I brought you on to this group, and the reason why I wanted to bring you on is because, one, you have a wealth of knowledge about the real estate market. You have more in-depth knowledge than I would say most real estate agents do about the market. And I think that's a big asset for real estate agents that listen to this podcast. And I'd love to hear kind of like some of the numbers that you guys are looking at, some of the things that you guys are saying to your clients, things of that nature. And so I think, and the second reason is that a lot of real estate agents don't build generational wealth. Like I was making a lot of money in real estate, and I would have had more of it if I didn't go into business and do some, another thing. I would have probably done better just not going into that business right before a pandemic. But real estate agents aren't really good at finding deals. They're good at like selling other people's stuff. So, thank you for sharing your story. Like, I am so sorry that you had to see, be in New York that day, but I'm glad that there was a good man like you there, because I'm sure you added value to people there and did a lot of things for our country. So thank you for that. And it's interesting how, sometimes seeing that happen and you're like, holy shit, that could be me, changes the trajectory of your life. And you're like, there's so many other people. And I don't think I'm putting words in your mouth, but I've heard you basically open up on stage with Sean, that you wanted to help, but
yeah. So let's just stay there for 1 second before you get a question, just to finish that. So number one, we want to thank all our military veterans, first responders, and everybody out there that's done anything for our country. And even during the pandemic, and I forgot that part, I work with people 18 to 85, but what I realized that day was that the only difference between me and the people in Twin Towers was that my company signed a lease on a smaller building. Otherwise, that could have been me with a choice of jump or bird. And I took the first pictures that went out to every major newspaper that day. We processed the photos of the 13 people jumping off that story and staying past the National Guard. And that's, sometimes, and a lot of people do that to become agents, right? They get a reset in their life, whether it's a death, whether it's COVID, whether it's, some sort of trauma in their life. And they go, I'm not happy. And they start looking for real estate, and they think real estate agent school is the solution because they see a lot of people doing it. And one of the things in my background I did forget is that I'm a former continuing education instructor in New York, California, Florida, and Texas. So 4 states I used to teach CE credit in for agents. To your exact point, Vikram, about people don't understand. They go to real estate agent school, the general public thinks they're going to learn how to invest in real estate. They're going to learn how to do all of these things, but they're not really taught that in real estate agent school. You're taught how not to get sued, and you're taught the laws, right? And so, that's the 2 things it really breaks down to. And full disclosure, I was never an agent just until this summer. Like, technically I had to get my agent license, even though I've been training investors, even though I've been a CE instructor for many years. I finally I passed my test like 15 years ago. I just never filed my license because as an investor, it could be detrimental to me.
Right.
Yeah.
But to help build some companies, I did technically get my license. I still don't run around and show properties, but we'll talk about that.
There is a lot here, and there's a lot to unpack, and I'm excited to have the opportunity to unpack it with you. I'm really curious about the investing side. Like, I do want to spend some time on the tactical things and like what you're teaching people. So maybe let's start there. Let's start with like, what are some things that real estate agents should be considering going into a 2023 market around investing, or even people that are considering investing? Like, let's break it down so simple, because I've chatted with real estate agents that don't know where to start. How about we start there? We start with like, how do
they find investors?
Yeah. How do they find investors?
I think let's just start there.
Well, yeah, I think,
how do they find you? Because if they have a deal on the market and they don't want it, you do.
Yeah.
And you're still buying no matter what.
I get students all across the country. Anywhere you got them, we'll take them. If you got good deals, but the problem is most people don't know what a good deal is, right? Well, let's unpack this, because the last, what do you want to call it, pandemic market, like 4 years, you didn't have to be a good agent. You didn't have to be a good investor. I tell people all the time, like, what kicked in over the last 4 years is literally, you could have taken a dart, thrown it at a house, done nothing with it, right? And you would have made 50 grand.
300,000 in equity. 300.
Yeah, you made 50 grand profit. You could turn around and flip it. You didn't need any skills, anything. And same on the agent side, right? Like, you didn't have to hustle. You literally were like, just get a listing and it sold the next day, right? Like, and so now is the time where we separate the real investors and the real agents from the people that are just wannabes. And here's your headline: the best thing that ever happened for real estate investors is that interest rates are going to 7, 8, 9%. What? It's exciting. It's the best time ever, because people don't know how to do deals in that market.
Right.
And most people only know 3 ways to buy real estate, right? That's to have a good job, a good credit score, go out there and acquire a property through a traditional mortgage. Number 2, OPM, other people's money, other people's credit, and 3, wholesaling, right? There's actually over 20 strategies for investing in real estate.
Wow.
That you can get into with little money or little credit, no money, no credit, whatever it happens to be. If you're an 800 credit score, you don't need creative finance and you don't need those types of things, but there's all sorts of strategies that you can use. And as an agent, here's the benefit. If you understand that as an agent, you're going to help your people do more deals where there aren't deals. You know what I like? You can get somebody that's not going to, because the interest rates went up, they lost $50,000, $100,000 in their pre-approvals, right? Well, you can still get them into a deal on creative financing.
Right.
We bought a
Seller carry and things like that.
seller carry,
All sorts.
Learn these. If you learn all these different other strategies, lease options, right? Sandwich lease options, carry back, Airbnb, OPM, like there's all different strategies that we could put together to, and if the agent can do that for their buyers, they're going to make more commission, and as well as learn that for themselves. Like as agents, you get to cherry pick deals.
Here's a crazy thing is that a seller might be feeling the pain right now. They're like, oh, we don't need to sell, but we wanted to sell for XYZ reasons. And they can carry a note, they can carry the loan, they could do a seller carryback, and they could structure the deal where they actually make money that they would have had to have lost otherwise. And there's could be tax benefits because of the way that they structure it. So they don't get a huge lump sum payment that they're going to have to pay a huge tax chunk on. So if you can get creative, you can help them, right? You actually got to get accountants and attorneys and things like that in there, but you can help them save money on a tax liability that might have been $50,000. So they're like, well, shit, I'm going to lose $100,000. You're like, well, we just saved you 50 here. If you do this, you might make a couple of $100 here over the course of 5 or 10 years. That's another X amount of dollars cash flow in your pocket. And a lot of people that are selling investment properties, they don't need to sell for finances. They need to sell because they might, there's older people that might not be around in 10 years. So they're like, we don't want
they don't want to have the headache and their kids don't want it, right?
And
that's exactly it.
Structure the deal where they get a cash flow every month where they don't have a tax liability, but people don't know that because they don't do research. They don't try to figure things out. They're not listening to Hugh. They're not listening to Bigger Pockets. They're just listening to, Mariah Carey on repeat, wishing that, the waterfalls of TLC would stop.
Well, that's the cool thing, right? And I always go to people like, do you care about the price of the house? And unfortunately, a lot of people thought that's what it is. I go, do you care about the price of the house or how much money you're going to keep in your pocket afterwards? Right? Now, if I ask anybody,
what do they say?
At first, they're like, well, the price. And they're like, oh, wait, yeah, how much I keep, right? It's got to take that process. And then we walk them through the step. And if I go, hey, Cody, would you like to own or finance your house for the next 30 years? He goes, no, right? Because like he hears all the stories and all of that, right? Like, his first response would be like, no, that sounds crazy because what if you don't pay me and I got to foreclose, like all the things. But if I go, hey, Cody, I know you want, $350,000 for your house. I can pay you, $325,000, which would save you in taxes. But at the end of it, you'll make $375,000. Is that okay with you?
Yes.
Right. And there's seller finance. He just financed this house. I didn't buy that house with a 350 credit score and whatever down payment we work out.
It's so interesting. Like all these different, we've been really on a journey. Like we were at the NAREP event last week speaking, and they were talking about like all the money that's actually available in the ecosystem in order to get people into a home or in order to find solutions. Like when you train your investors to look for deals, like what are you looking for in 2023? Is it a lot of the principles still the same, or how are you finding these deals? Like obviously a lot of it comes down to numbers and does this make sense? But what would you say to a real estate agent that is like, hey, I want to get my feet wet in investing. I want to be able to find not just properties, but I want to be able to find properties that I can eventually buy myself. Obviously we chatted a little bit about creative financing. How are you helping people find deals, and what does that kind of look like and how can a real estate agent find deals for themselves?
Well, I think it goes back to the old strategies, and no, this is new. Airbnb started, if you think about this, Airbnb started out of the housing market crash, right? That's why it started, then if you don't know how the name came about, they started renting 2 air mattresses per concert, right? And it grew from that. and they grew into this whole business. That's why you got, air in the name of it, right? And I was an early adopter thanks to one of my uber wealthy friends. He's like, hey, we're going to rent out your house while you're traveling. Is that okay with you and pay you? And I was like, cool, sure. Like, I come back, I get a check, and, I'm flying out to an event like Denver, and he cleans my apartment. I was like, you had me at clean my apartment for free. Right? I'm a guy, like, you're a pay somebody to clean my apartment. I come back and you give me a check. Sure. No problem, man. Right. And I go through that in the book, but here's the thing with it, right? It's really simpler than everybody thinks, because as a real estate agent, you are farming a market, you're farming an area. Like, you go back to the old days of the farming, right? You know the good areas, you know the bad areas. So you're looking at a place that you can add value to in some way. Now that could be, better finance. That could be, fixing something up, rehab it. Like, if you're just starting, I would not do like a gut rehab, like $250,000 rehab project when you've never done that before. You want what the people call down south, like putting lipstick on a pig, right? You want to make it prettier, lighter, brighter. You want something. And even during the pandemic, by the way, there were deals like that, right? There were deals like that. We got a deal in Florida just before the market took off, because going into the pandemic, we didn't know what was going to happen. But that was a big rehab. That was like $100,000 rehab, right? But starting out, you want something that you can just make lighter, brighter, slight improvements. And you're already farming a market in an area because you're an agent, right? You're selling houses in that area. You know which blocks are good. You know which are bad. And that's the first thing. Second, you got to pick your strategy, right? You got to pick your strategy, because traditional rental and Airbnb rentals are very different. And what messes most people up is they try and combine the two.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're in a really wealthy area, you don't want people having parties there on a Tuesday night. Right? You don't want those things. So a lot of people are like, oh, I got this great house in this, uber wealthy neighborhood. It'll be great Airbnb. It's a mansion, all these things. No, your neighbors are calling the cops. They know the police commissioner. They know all the people. They know all the things.
Yeah.
That's not a good area for that. That's a good long-term rental. So you got to make your choice, or if you're going for cash flow, then it's either short-term or long-term rental. Where do you want that to be? Because, nobody wants to, it's funny, this house is on like a corner of a busy street, right? That's a perfect Airbnb. It's not a good long-term rental, because it's a long-term rental, like, people don't want their kids running into the front yard, into the street, right? Into a 2-lane road. But as an Airbnb, you don't care. You're parking at night, you're in, you're out. So it depends on the strategy. So number one is understand your market. Number two is pick your strategy and then stick to it. Because what a lot of people do is they're like, oh, I'll do this strategy. And then 2 weeks later, they're like, oh, I'll do that strategy. And then that. And then, of course, they just don't do it.
So interesting. The singular focus. We were chatting with another person today about getting singularity in your focus, and like finding the thing that you actually want to do. I'm curious, because it sounds like you've had quite a bit of singularity and focus when it comes to, teaching people how to invest. How do you navigate somebody saying, hey, I want to eventually get into real estate investing, and I want to do all these things, and I want to own multiple properties, but I'm also an entrepreneur and I have a business, and I really want to focus on my business, because like if I take too much of my focus and I go over here, like how do you know when is the right time in order to actually learn the skills that you need in order to actually get into investing? What is your take on singularity and focus?
Cody's asking a personal question.
Yes, but it's all good. It's all good. And Cody, by the way, before today, have that just because you're like setting me up here. So like, have we met before today, or is this our first experience? Just so everybody out there knows,
this isn't our first experience.
This is our first experience. So in November, I came out with the Launch Button book. And what this talks about is having a business and real estate ownership. Okay. Because what happens typically with a business is when businesses take off, real estate might crash, and vice versa. So this gives the entrepreneur exactly the ability to continue to have that sustainable income. Now, you do have to have singular focus, but there's two things going on, right? There's your active income and your passive income, and we have to be building both. Right. And so in the beginning, if you don't have a lot of time for, you're like, I'm building my business. You got to find ways to invest passively. And there are ways. You can be a private lender on deals. So you start becoming familiar with that. right? We can plug you into one of our networks and be like, hey, I've got X number of money, and you get secured by like a mortgage or something like that. Or you're like, hey, let's go into partnership with a more seasoned person, right? I mean, that's why we all have mentors. You have that ability to partner with people and do that. So you're starting to learn, but you're not focused on it, right? While you're building your business. And eventually you're going to have some more disposable income that you can start investing and start doing it on your own. But that's what I believe in. And that's how I got out of the corporate world, right? That's how I fired my boss. Was I was hired to train, and I wanted to be in front of investors. So I didn't even know there was an industry where you could go out there and train people, right? Now we launched our entrepreneur family or efamily.com there. And, you know, that platform allows people to come in there to do that. We have basic trainings, lifetime trainings that people have. And I like that model better. It's like they pay one price and they're done. They got it for life. And we did all the free updates with it for the real estate training to lay the base. Because here's what I taught with a lot of entrepreneurs also, and Vikram knows this from his years of being an entrepreneur as well, is most people don't set up their retirement accounts in their businesses. So you're starting a business. Did you know that your IRA could invest in real estate for you? Your SEP IRA or your 401k or all that, or your health savings account, all those things. If you don't do it through the traditional, you know, John Hancock's, Fidelity, you actually can use that money to invest in real estate, and that'll pay for your health insurance in the future. So there's all sorts of creative things out there. But, you know, if you're focused here, then find partners over here and vice versa, right? You know, so that you can keep that.
So Hugh, when you are looking for, because I'm telling a lot of my students right now in the Real Estate Growth Academy to find investors, right? I said, you guys, investors are going to be buying because investors know how to finance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Real estate agents like, oh, there's no deals. Oh, there's nothing about. I said, no. You're looking through the lens of a commission. You're not looking through the lens of a partnership. You're not looking through the lens of a, you know, they can find a creative way. You don't know about hard money. You don't know about, you know, other people's money. All you know about is they got to get a mortgage. Banks are, like, so when you were looking for investor partners, right? Or if you're looking for, not investor partners, if you're looking for real estate agent partners, because I'm sure real estate agents dish you guys a ton of deals. Some work out, some don't. Probably most don't. However, what are the things that you would love a real estate agent to do for you prior? And then how would a real estate agent find a Hugh and organization of Hughes where there's 10,000? I mean, you have access to a database of probably 5,000 to 7,000 active people that may or may not be buying, but are active, that probably have friends who are active as well.
Yeah. So great question. And, you know, I always interview agents because we get agents all the time, right? And when I go to a new market, so, you know, a couple of years ago, we went down to North Carolina for the first time, and I was like, we had this property and we needed to sell it, and I'm interviewing agents. And as I went through 10 or 15 agents because none of them knew the creative strategies, right? Yeah. And I use a test every time with my agents when they bring me deals or they want to sell deals. Like, if an agent is smart, they will work with investors, and it's not about the first deal. It's about you're getting 10 deals.
Right.
Yeah. So, but as you said, Vikram, they got commission breath, right? It's all about, hey, I got to get this commission. I got to get this commission. I got to get this commission. So, you know, like if somebody brings me a deal, I always tell them right away, like, if you bring me a deal, I'll give you the pocket listing as we're working on the rehab, and you get to go do it before we get it done. Like if you didn't sell it before we get it done, you get it. Like it's not even on the market. You're the only one that knows about it, right?
And let me explain, because even that term some agents might not know.
Okay.
What that means is that you found an opportunity that Hugh and his partners picked up. They're going to renovate it, rehab it, and relist it. So it's a flip. And then
it could be a flip, it could be a rental, whatever it is, right? Which way.
And then you would give them, well, if it's a flip, you would give them the listing on the backside so that they could list the property. Correct?
Yeah, typically that. But what we'll first do is say, hey, we're going to sell this property. If you bring us a buyer, right, before we go to list it, it's yours, right? So you already know it's coming up, right? You can start pre-market it. We've got this property coming. You get somebody lined up. They can come in and pick out the colors, right? Like your beautiful purple there behind you or whatever. Like they want purple walls. Like they come in and we'll paint them. we'll do all the things. You get as a buyer in the process. Why? Because that saves us time, right? It's your property, you get it right back, right? We then have some marketing strategies, but still they bring us a listing, and then we're going to do more deals, right? Like you're going to see how we work and we work. The other thing I do is when I first get agents on the phone that potentially we want to list our property with, because I don't have a problem listing it with them if they're going to bring me value,
Right.
And they got to bring me value. So I always ask them, and I always play dumb, like I've never done a deal before. I'll be like, hey, do the area, we do some deal. We're looking to do, look to buy some properties here, and we're looking for a good agent. And everybody gives me their pitch. I'm like, all right, cool. Can you explain what that 1030 something is? Because if I want to sell, can you explain what a 1030 something is? And I say it just like that.
You know what's hilarious about that? The funny thing about what you just said there was, like, I played dumb. And like, I'm like, I think if you're teaching your investors to play dumb in order to actually, I just want to stop there for a second, because like, if you're speaking to somebody and you think that they're not qualified based on that first interaction, you could be grossly misrepresenting and losing out on deals by not digging deeper with that.
Oh, but you didn't answer the question. So there's two answers I accept. What are the two answers that I accept?
What's a 1031 exchange?
Yeah.
So, and the two answers I accept is the right definition.
Yeah.
Like, you tell me what it is. And the second answer I accept, to your point, Cody, is I accept I don't know, but I'm going to go find out.
Right.
Yeah.
I accept those two answers.
Yeah.
Totally.
What I don't accept...
I think it's something like this, but I'm not really sure. So obviously, let me go talk to somebody who's smart about this. And maybe you could educate me on it, because clearly you know something. So maybe you could help me with this stuff.
Correct. And I totally accept both answers. I don't need them really to know what a 1031 exchange is, and I don't necessarily need, or they absolutely define it, right? And they're pretty close on their definition of it. Now, for those of you guys out there, what a 1031 exchange is I buy a house, right? I make a profit on it. I don't want to pay tax on it. So I need to roll that investment over into another house. Within 45 days, I've identified 3 properties I must close in 180 days. If I don't close in 180 days, I have to pay tax on my profit, right? And at the end of the year, it gets even more complicated, like, the month shortened, all these things. The answer that I don't want is somebody trying to BS me with the answer. Right. Or the answer first on here, calling bullshit, right? I want to see if they're going to bullshit. I want to see if you're going to give me a fluffy bullshit answer, then you're out. Because I know if you do that now, you're going to do that later with like, oh, the repairs on this is only this. And I'm going to be like, no, it's not. Or you potentially can rent it for this, right? Like, I hate commercial, what do they call them? The commercial, like, pro formas. Because I'm like, look, if you could really get that rent, don't give me a pro forma. If you could really get that rent, the guy would be getting it right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so obviously you can't, right? We're not going to hit the pro forma. Let's be realistic. So that's why I accept those two answers. I accept the I don't know. Let me find out. Because now I know you're a hard worker. I know you're a hard worker. I know you've got integrity. And Vikram met to a group where we talked about sales and groups, and it's about integrity, right? Like, you tell me the right answer, or you tell me we're going to go find out. I'm perfectly fine with either one.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm not, like, to your point, Cody, I'm not eliminating people because they don't know. I'm like, I'd rather work with a hard-working young agent that's hungry, that wants to go out there and find stuff, right? I'd rather work with that and be like, all right, because I could train them. I could be like, this is what I'm looking for, this is what I need, and they're going to go find it and bring me stuff.
Yeah.
Right? I don't have time to run around and find properties. I'd rather have it, agents, my team members do that. Most of my deals come through my team, right? They're like, hey, I got a deal I can't handle. Okay, bring it to me, right? We'll partner, we'll do it. And we make sure everybody eats. That's the whole thing. Unfortunately, there are some bad investors out there that, cut agents. I'll be full disclosure. I know one guy from New York City, like, he's like, yeah, you do this. And then, like, the agent brings him a guy and he's like, all right, I'm only going to pay you this commission now. After he already brings him the tenant, like, what are you going to do? The agent's like stuck. Like, you can't do that. That's not fair to the agent either. Like, you made an agreement, like, we cheat the agreement. So,
yeah.
So does that clarify the answer, Cody? That's why I said,
yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. Like, make sure that you find the answer. Like, make sure you don't assume. You said something that was really interesting, because I think a lot of real estate agents disqualify people too quickly where you're like, I play dumb, but it's like, you could ideally bring an agent 15, 20, 30 deals, but they just don't know because they disqualify too quickly. So just really, really interesting. I'm curious to know when it comes to your training of real estate investors, like what are some like things that you look for in a property that makes it a no-brainer in order to move forward? Obviously, you mentioned there's the financing, there's the creative financing, and which can make things like move forward. But like, are there some like some key principles that you're teaching to like your people, like specifically going into 2023, or are they all just like long-term principles, or are there things that are happening now in the marketplace in regards to investment that are really like making things not like making things like this is a no-brainer?
So a lot of investors were sitting out, right? A lot of investors were sitting out over the last 6 months or so, all of that, waiting to see what's going to happen. Because more money is made as an investor in the downturn than on the good market, right? The good market is where the investor's selling out. They've made their money. They're selling out. The first-time home buyers are coming in, all of those things, right? And they're buying those properties that investors were sitting on. So investors are still like starting to jump back into the game. I think you'll see more of it, 2023 as we're going through it, coming into the spring, you'll start to see more investors jumping back in as properties values sort of balance out, right? So a lot of investors were selling at the end of the pandemic, getting out and being like, all right, let's see where this market goes, right? And they're looking for the properties that the first-time home buyers don't want, right? And those are the ones that, even during the pandemic, fixer-uppers were sitting on the market, right? All of these things are sitting on the market, and that's what they're looking at. They're looking at the distressed house, the person that needs to sell. Even during a pandemic, there were people that needed to sell, right? We picked up a property just outside of Tampa, Florida, which is, I just rated one of the hottest markets in the entire country. We picked it up like $200,000 below market. Now, granted, you could look from the kitchen all the way through to the bedroom cinder block wall. So there was no wall in between, right? It had mold in it. The bathtub had disintegrated on one half of the house, right? So there's all these things. She was living on one house. It was an older lady. She was living on one house. She had the pink bathroom, the elderly tub, and the other house side of the house was just like destroyed, right? Like, down to the studs. It had mold in it. It was down to the studs. So, and we picked that up. We did creative financing on it. We gave them like 20 grand and they financed the rest. No money, no credit score needed. We did all that. And at the end of the pandemic, it's worth like, 600,000. Now, is that us? No, that's part of the pandemic market. But so we did pull everything out of it, right? We only refinanced at like 500, knowing the market's going to come back.
Makes sense.
So when we teach our students that is, hey, in the up times of the market, it gets harder. Like my students were all going, there's no deals. Yeah, homeowners are like paying 50, 100 grand over market. We've seen this before. You got to wait it out, right? But still, there are people getting divorces. There are people, unfortunately passed away, right? Life events happen, upsize, downsize, all of that. What were you saying, Vikram?
So there's always distressed people out there, right?
Yeah.
There's people that need to sell because, they have another opportunity, right? Maybe there's a business that came along, or there's a, like you said, there's a death in the family, there's an illness, or, people just sometimes are done. My old neighbor had, this was 2011, 2012. He had 27 properties lined up, all paid off. And he's like, Vic, I love you. You're awesome. I see how hard you work on your real estate deals. I'd love to use you as my agent, but I have somebody who's brought me deals my whole life. Like, that's my agent, but like, keep the hustle up, because there's other guys like me that don't have relationships with people that would love to give a hustler like you the opportunities, like, because I'm selling everything in the next 3 to 5 years. And he liquidated his whole portfolio.
Yeah,
because his kids didn't want to handle it. And
that's the biggest thing. So just to unpack one thing you said there, that's the biggest thing.
Families don't want to take over.
Families don't want to take it over, and these people spend their lives building up these portfolios. And we love buying the Oreos, right? We call them Oreos. Other real estate investors' portfolios. We'll go in there because you can take all 20. Like, I teach my people, like, they're selling one, ask to buy them all, right? Do a package deal.
Yeah.
right? Get it all in one. But that's exactly it. Most people that have built up real estate portfolios like that, their kids don't want it. So like they do all these things. They're hoping their kids, like, it's a family business. Like, I know you're right. Most people don't want to go into the family business. And they're like, no, I want nothing to do with it. And, so, but doing that, building those relationships is the key, right? If you're that guy, he's feeding you 27 deals right there. And you brought him deals. Think about that. You brought him deals during that process. So you brought at least, 15 or 20 deals during that process that he bought from you. And he probably flipped some in there, right? Sold some off. And now he's selling 27 and he's giving back to you because you built a relationship.
Right.
Totally.
It's everything we do. I have a family members that are very deep into real estate, right? Every aspect of real estate you could probably think of now, their hands are in, from commercial to residential to short term to building and construction and warehouses and all sorts of other stuff. I'll sit in my uncle's office any given day, and he'll get at least 17 to 30 potential deals. The dude's wealthy, and he picks up calls from agents. I'm like, yo, don't you have somebody else to do that? He's like, why would I give this opportunity to analyze the deal to somebody else? He's like, I know the market for the last 50 years. Like, I know the neighborhoods. I know the values, right? He said, but I would never have been to where I'm at if it wasn't for the relationships with those realtors. He said, if they ask for a 10% commission and I'm going to make 20%, I'll give it to them. Yeah. That's the thing that people don't get either, is that if there's enough skin in the game, you can ask for ludicrous things and you'll be like, cool, you found the deal. What do you want? I want this. Done.
I said it. So, and this is the funny thing. I just had an agent come to me. He goes, hey, can you teach me wholesaling? And what I really wanted to say in my brain is, that's what you do every day as an agent. Pretty much you bring a deal that's right. You're going to make a commission on it. So wholesaling, which is now becoming illegal in certain states, right? Because they want you to have a license to do that because you're selling something with a commission, which is totally understandable. Like I get the investor side and I get the agent side. Like it's in essence doing that. But a wholesale fee on a deal that you're talking about, Vikram, could be 50 or 100 grand, right?
Huge.
And that should be 10% of the deal.
Yep.
So, we don't, if there's money in the deal, we don't have a problem paying that, right? But also sometimes it's going to be like, hey, look, like this deal's super tight. Crap got messed up on the rehab. Like we need to sell it. This is all we can offer. So in those relationships, if you're looking at it as the long term instead of the short term, like eventually you're going to get taken care of, right? As the agent, like if you do me a favor, like I am giving you a listing, like I am referring you to my friends, like work with this guy, like that turns into all sorts of things. Or, hey, look, we got an opportunity to invest. Do you want to be part of the deal this time? Not just as the agent and make your 6%. There's a lot more skin in the game and you've helped us out. So why don't you become part of the deal? We just put your commission as part of the deal. That's your investment, so to speak. Plus we give you a bonus because you brought us the deal, right? Like there's things like that can be done all the time. If you're playing the long game and not just like sell it, flip, next person.
What are your thoughts on Airbnb? Thoughts on like renting out Airbnbs? Like obviously, like it's an investment strategy as well. I feel like everyone over the last couple of years, I definitely see it on TikTok. Everyone's an Airbnb investor now. Everyone's trying to sell an Airbnb investment course. And
all right, what's that you laughing here?
And because it's so true. Like it's so true. And everyone goes back to everyone's talking. Yeah, everyone's talking about Airbnb. Yeah.
Well, I go back to before, but like in the last 4 years, like all these gurus and real estate gurus are coming out of the woodwork. It's like, guys, it didn't take anything to make money. Like you bought a house, you could rent it out on Airbnb, you could rent it long term, you could just literally, like I tell my guys, like they're all mad and they're training. I'm like, literally, you can close your eyes, throw a dart on a map and buy that house and you would have made money, right? That doesn't make you a guru because you made money over the last 4 years. It's like, okay, let's see what happens as we go through the downturn. Let's see who survives, right? But yeah,
as you've survived a downturn.
Yeah, I mean, I came up, I left my job in 2005 in the highest market there. We survived that, then we went for the worst market ever, right? So now, did we lose properties? Sure. Did we have bad situations? Was that great learning experience so we never did get? Yes. And if I listened to my friend Jeff, who I say in the book, we'd be who knows how many millionaires by now if we just sold all our properties when he wanted to back then, right? So I got to give him credit for that. but we didn't. So, anyway. But with this, now it's like you're going to see that same thing with the TikTok people, right? Like, oh, now all of a sudden it's like, because with some of the latest stats that have come out is that listings on Airbnb have gone up 25%.
Wow.
And in August of 2022, we saw a drop in bookings. So you now have a 25% increase in properties on Airbnb short-term rentals. And now you have a decrease in bookings based on the fact that people are traveling less because of the economy,
Right.
interest rates, things are changing, right?
Do you think, Hugh, that some people are trying to rent out rooms right now because the economy has shifted, because things have gotten expensive? Do you think that could be where, people are like trying to do the house hack, where like, hey, we got a couple extra rooms, we can rent it out for 30, 40, 50 bucks a night. That's $500, $600, $700, $800 extra. If people rent it, that covers our gas and our utility and our food costs. Do you think that could be where some of the added inventory is coming from?
That definitely can be. And it has been, right? So we go all the way back. When I started in 2010, I used to rent a bedroom in my apartment while I traveled, right? Like, because those are the rules in New York City, right? You couldn't rent your whole apartment, and there's different laws in different states. So with Airbnb, there's really three things. And that third thing would be the laws, and the legality keeps changing with the hotel industry.
Yeah.
So, but the partial, like you said, the rent in the rooms and those things totally plays into that to help support that. Again, but here's what's going to happen with Airbnb, just like with agents, just like with investors, it's the crappy properties that we're being able to rent out. Like, if I send you this picture that this one host sent me, like, they advertise the property with a TV. It doesn't have a TV now. So, of course, they're going to do a bad review. And they left, like, a bottle of wine. Like, I know there's some coffee cups there, but there's actually a coffee machine there. But it was like a bottle of wine with 2 coffee cups next to it and, like, 4 cinnamon buns next to it. That was, like, their welcome gift. I was, like, on a huge table, so it looks completely crappy. So what's going to happen on Airbnb is you're going to see the crappy properties, right, dive off, right? We're going to lose them, and people are going to drop out of this being like, oh, it doesn't work, right? You come out all it doesn't work.
Of course
It doesn't work. It's just, like, and it's just going to go down that rabbit hole, and you're going to have a thinning out. I think you're going to have a thinning out on Airbnb, VRBO, like all of those things as well. And it's going to be the nicely done properties, right? You're going to have to invest into your Airbnb, do it the right way, stage it the right way, do all.
You're in an Airbnb right now, aren't you?
I am. I'm in one of my students' Airbnbs. We're actually going to film a video here.
Yeah, it looks really nice. I mean, it looks like whoever's done it, you got the water bottles, the welcome package, the information. It's got the, moldings around the windows. I mean, it looks like it's granite counters. It looks like they've put some dough into it.
Yeah. Now, if you look at the outside, like, yeah, and we'll do a video on it. I'll send you guys the link afterwards. From the outside, it doesn't look as nice, but we teach people to focus on what's the selling feature, right? This property would focus on the inside. Some you focus on, hey, I got a lake outside, right? I got that view, right? So we call it your money shot, because on the Airbnb, you've got one picture and you're listed against 16 properties.
So totally true.
Yep.
Totally
And
true.
if you have a limited budget, right? So this is why you guys need experts, because if you have, let's say you have $50,000 and you have to do a gut remodel. Well, okay, if we have 50 grand, let's leave 5 grand to paint the outside, and we won't spruce up the exterior, but we'll rent it out for a year. We'll make $10,000. We'll put a couple $1,000s back into the front yard, spruce it up a little bit, but you get your money shot. That gets you the bookings, that gets you the money, that gets you the revenue.
Yeah. And I would say you break it into phases, right? So phase 1 is get your property up and running. Phase 2, because most people, when they're doing this, they run out of money on their rehab, right? So phase 1 is get somebody coming in, do all the things that you really need to do. And then phase 2 is you can continue to make it better, right? You can add on. So when we did that property down in Florida, I'll send you guys a link for the video, but you'll see it was like, I walked through it with like no electricity on, like all sorts of things, right? And then we're all done with it, but the pool needed to be done. It was starting to crumble, but we didn't have the 15 or 20 grand to redo a pool, right? A cement pool in Florida. So we're like, all right, we get it up and running. We get the money shot. We got 6 months of running. We saved up that money that paid for the pool, right? So like there's things like that you can do in the process, so you're not going ahead and like killing your budget, but also, like you said, taking care of what's going to look good, what's really needed.
Yeah, man. Dude, there's so much value, and we could talk for hours and hours and hours and hours. I'm excited because, one, you're an awesome human being. You actually, I've met your students before, and you put your money where your mouth is. You just are a really good human, and I would love to see, I wish I would have listened to my rich uncle. I wish I would have listened to more people like you 10 years ago. And
well, look, you're so young, man. You still got time. You're young. You and Cody, you're young. You still got time. I know nobody feels like they are.
I feel pretty young. I do feel young. And we were listening with Sharon, and he was doing a private class for, 15, 20 real estate agents. And these are real estate agents that are, I would consider, in the top 10, 5, 1% of the nation. And only a handful of them had investment properties. Only a handful of them understood investors. Only a handful of them understood how they could be the investor as well. And if they don't understand it, I know that brokerages aren't teaching it. So where can people reach out to find the Mr. Zaretsky?
All right. So a couple places. Number one, we got the book on Amazon. So you guys can go check that out. It's a number one bestseller. So we'll have that. The launchbutton.net is also the book website. So you can go there at thelaunchbutton.net.
Dope.
And then we have a platform where we do work with a lot of agents, and I'd love to talk to you guys about how we could do some things for your network.
Sweet.
If you go to, it's eFramily, we call it Framily, Framily, right? Entrepreneur Family, because I use the Hawaiian model. Even though I'm in New York City, I go to Hawaii every year, and I love the aunties and uncles model because they call them that because those are the people they respect. Your family, your friends, you're sort of born into. Sometimes you respect them, sometimes you don't, right? But their family, you can't get rid of them, right? But your aunties and uncles, your ohana, so to speak, are the people there. So we've built out that platform. So we've got some basic training on there, and then we're going to move people up on there. And HughZaretsky.com is all the upcoming events as we travel around the country. If you want a consultation, we work with a lot of agents to help them learn the investment side and, even to structure your agent business the right way. Because that's one thing also, unfortunately, agents don't learn is how to set up their retirement accounts, how to set up their health savings accounts, how to do their health insurance, because those are all tax write-offs.
Yeah.
Right? You guys can actually pay, people don't even know they can pay their kids. You can pay your kids $3,500. Now, you guys are too young for that, but some people in your audience will. $3,500 a year in tax savings just by paying your kids. So there's lots of cool things out there, and I'm sure we'll do this again. But Vikram, I got to say, when I first met you at that very first event, and he gets so excited about things, and he's got such passion behind.
A little excited.
Like he was swinging the sweatshirt on the chair, breaking chandeliers. Who cared who the glass fell on?
I didn't know I broke a chandelier until it was raining. It was raining glass on us, and I was like, "Why is there something falling?" Everybody's like, "There's glass falling," and I'm like, "Why is there
just so much when he's like on a chair, swinging, So you guys
try to like expensive thing.
You got to play full out in life, man. If you're gonna play full out. Otherwise, don't play at all.
Yeah, you guys are in good hands here with Cody and Vikram. Make sure you follow what they say. Make sure you stay plugged in with them because they're really good on chairs and break chandeliers. Who knows what's going to happen in the future?
Hey, if we can break chandeliers, we can break your limiting beliefs.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool,
thank you so much, just for taking the time today to chat with both Vikram and I. Vikram, bro, this one was good. This one was good. This one was very, very good. This one was good. Like this one was something that was very tactical that I think, and no matter where you're at in the nation, real estate agent or just person watching or gonna watch this podcast, you need to check this out because real estate investing, as we've learned over the last little while, is something that a lot of people don't really know creative financing. We talked about that in this podcast, and we learned a lot in this podcast about how we can actually, as real estate agents and professionals, get more deals through connecting with investors.
Yep.
What were some of your takeaways for this podcast, and what do you think? Why do you think people should watch it?
Dude, there's so much out there There's so much lost opportunity that real estate agents have. I talk
Yeah.
to so many real estate agents, Cody, like you do, and the one thing they say is, I want to get out of production. I want to get out of production. I wish I wasn't still in production. I don't want to. They're tired, bro. Like being a real estate agent is a lot of work. You're driving, you're away from your family, nights and weekends, events, you're showing homes or you're talking to clients because that's what you got to do in this industry. And so there's so many realtors out there that are tired. And if they could buy a house a year, if they could house hack one home a year for 10 years, by the time they get their 10th home, that first home, if they don't need the money, they could be doubling their mortgage payments. There's so many things that they could do, right? But there is so much opportunity for real estate agents to become the investor, and they get the opportunity before they send it out. And if they can do that, dang, bro, like their life changes, because in retirement at 60 years old, 65 years old, or whenever, they're just like, dude, I only want to work with a handful of clients now, Vikram, but I can't, so I need help. They don't have to have that conversation because they have thousands of dollars coming in every month in cash flow.
Yeah, man, it was really cool to kind of chat with you about like everything's doing, even like a story. Like I'm really excited for everyone to kind of dive into this podcast to hear how he got to where he is today, his background. He went really deep with us and really tactical as well. So I want to say thank you to you for tuning into another episode of the RE Agent Podcast, the #1 real estate podcast in the world for the season.